You know that girl whose favorite hobby is shopping? The one who takes pictures of her freshly manicured nails against the steering wheel of her luxury car with a Starbucks latte in the cup holder and Sephora bags in the passenger seat? Yeah, her. Now, traditionally, a hobby is an act of personal development that nurtures the mind, that builds skill sets, that fosters a sense of creativity and even connection to others. Unlike traditional hobbies like reading, writing, sewing, gardening, playing an instrument, shopping offers no pedagogical value, no improvement of intellect. There's no real skill involved. It's designed instead to keep us forever in the role of the consumer, shallow, dissatisfied, and always searching for the next thing to buy. Carrie Bradshaw herself, the patron saint of shopaholics, once declared, "I like my money right where I can see it, hanging in my closet." And decades later, that sentiment echoes across the internet. For influencers, shopping is the ultimate hobby, the kind that promises to change your life one purchase at a time. Today, influencers are the modern day Carrie Bradshaws, teaching us that the joy and the purpose and the sense of accomplishment that a real hobby provides can be found in shopping bags and delivered in packages. But turning shopping into a hobby doesn't nourish you, it drains you. It fills your closet, not your mind. Here's why shopping shouldn't be your hobby. We've recently discussed why shopping should not be your identity. We've discussed why shopping should not be your personality. And now I want to talk about why shopping should not be your hobby. There is a sentiment that's growing across the internet of mostly women proclaiming that shopping is their favorite hobby. This isn't anything entirely new. I mean, weekly Target runs and Starbucks runs and home goods runs have been staples in weekend rituals of women since at least the early 2000s. I believe that shopping should be a means to an end. I need some bread. I'm gonna go to the grocery store and buy some bread. I want a new pair of jeans. I'm gonna go to the store and get a new pair of jeans. You go to the store, you get the thing that you need, and you leave. Unfortunately, for too many women, it's like, I wanna spend every weekend on the hunt for a new pair of shoes, or a new purse, or a new dress, or some random aesthetic to fill my closet because I have nothing better to do and this is my favorite hobby. But to call shopping a hobby is to misunderstand what a hobby should be. Hobbies should be intellectually stimulating, meditative even, physically engaging. Knitting, for example, can be a form of mindfulness. Gardening connects you to your land and teaches you patience. Sports foster discipline and collaboration and resilience. Even solitary activities that are not as active, like reading or writing, they open portals to deeper critical thinking. They broaden our understanding of the world. They teach us to exercise our creative muscles. All of these hobbies enrich your life internally. But shopping, on the other hand, is entirely externally driven. Its entire purpose is acquisition, not reflection or growth or skill. You're not building yourself up. You're almost even distracting yourself from yourself. It's one thing if you buy things from garage sales or thrift stores and you repurpose them. That's a great hobby to build your creative skill set, to sharpen your mind. We can purchase materials to help us partake in our hobbies, but simply buying an item should never be where the hobby ends. Look, I get it. Shopping is an activity that you can do alone, and I understand how people who are lonely would feel like shopping would be a good hobby for them, especially in a society where community has been broken down, which we'll talk more about here in a minute, where third spaces like parks and libraries and community centers have been underfunded for years and now disappearing even more than ever. The mall or an online shopping platform can feel like a good surrogate for what those things used to bring us. By the 80s and 90s, malls and shopping centers had become social hubs where Americans spent weekends not just to buy necessities, but also to pass time. Corporations deliberately cultivated the idea of shopping as a hobby. And I think that shopping can temporarily mask loneliness, but in the long term, I think it actually deepens loneliness. Venues that might seem social, bustling malls or shopping districts, they offer a veneer of community because at the end of the day, you're investing in clothes and not in people. You're investing in physical items and not in skills. When you choose shopping as your go-to hobby, You're engaging in passive consumption, not active creation. You're not developing skills that might liberate you, that might challenge you. You're reinforcing a system that benefits from your own stagnation. French theorist Guy Debord, who's a favorite on this channel, wrote that modern social life has been subsumed by the quote-unquote spectacle, which is a collection of images and commodities that mediates human relations. All that once directly lived has moved away into a representation, Debord said, describing a world in which authentic social interaction is displaced by relationships between people and consumer images. Capitalism trains us to internalize isolation while convincing us that we're freely making empowered choices. As Grace Blakely writes in Vulture Capitalism, quote, "Most of us are trying to do what is best most of the time. Yet so many of our decisions don't feel like decisions at all. There is a deep contradiction between the belief that we are free and the reality of living under capitalism, a system of pervasive unfreedom." Shopping feels like a choice, and it is to a certain extent. You choose the brands, the aesthetic, the color, but you didn't choose the fact that shopping is one of the few socially acceptable ways to spend your free time. I mean, the woman who knits and sews, she's seen as someone who lacks modernity. The man or woman or person who reads too much is seen as a know-it-all in the age of anti-intellectualism. When you try to impart wisdom on people, people say you're self-righteous or you're doing too much or it's not that serious. Gardening, why do that? Quite frankly, a lot of people don't even have the luxury of gardening because they're trapped in high-rise apartments that have very limited space. And so shopping becomes the only socially acceptable way to spend your free time. It feels like a choice, but you didn't choose the bombardment of microtrends that tailor your desires before you are even able to define your desires for yourself. Shopping also creates a person who is obsessed with self, not in the meaningful, introspective way, not at all obsessed with self-reflection, but obsessed with the image of the self as it appears on Instagram, on TikTok, or in front of a mirror, the consumer self, the aesthetic self. And we've discussed this frequently. Women in particular, we're targeted relentlessly by consumer capitalism to define ourselves by what we buy. Unfortunately, for a lot of young women today, instead of gardening, they'll adopt the garden girl aesthetic. Instead of, learning how to engage with the land or learning about sustainable farming, they'll just buy into cottagecore with curated outfits and picnic props and have a photo shoot and post it online. The look replaces the experience. And this is how consumerism hollows out people. It sells us the aesthetic or the idea of the hobby without requiring the work, commitment, or growth that real hobbies demand. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to risk failure. You don't have to go deep. You just have to click buy now. As Naomi Klein wrote in her 1999 book, No Logo, another favorite on this channel, this all started with late 20th century super brands like Nike, Coca-Cola, and Starbucks, who didn't just focus on selling products, they were selling idealized lifestyles and images. Companies marketed a kind of trendy, youthful consumer capitalism in which buying the right clothes or sneakers was equated with being confident and being free. But what you're really purchasing is a performance, a temporary sense of belonging to a group or to a fantasy or to a trend that never quite becomes your permanent reality. Once the trend dies or the influencer shifts to a new look, you're left with nothing. You have to start from square one. Your emptiness returns, and this hollowness is a direct symptom of our loss of community. In the Max docuseries Eyes on the Prize 3, a group of Black boomer friends reminisce on the days that they held rent parties on Kelly Street in the Bronx in the 70s, where if one of their neighbors couldn't afford rent, the whole neighborhood would throw them a party as an act of mutual aid to raise money for their rent.
Kelly Street was always a family place. For one, we never locked our doors. If you were late or couldn't pay your rent, you got a rent party thrown for you. And people would donate to help you pay your bills.
I'd go to their house and eat one day, they come to my house and eat another day. We played together up and down the streets every day. Our parents went to work together.
Older people were never isolated and alone, they were always taken care of.
If the kids did something on, let's say Tiffany Street, Miss Jones on Tiffany Street was calling Miss Mabel on Kelly Street, and they would watch your child. It was a village.
This was, of course, before Reagan and Clinton era austerity measures that eroded on our sense of community and prioritized individualism. Could Could you actually imagine being short on rent and knocking your neighbor's door and asking them for help? They would probably laugh in your face first and slam the door in your face last. But there was once a time in the not so distant past that we could knock on each other's doors and rely on each other instead of relying on consumer capitalism. But now we just rely on shopping sprees and self-care routines. People are forced into self-reliance not because it empowers them, but because systems that should support them have collapsed.
Companies hate when you drive your friends to the airport. They want you to call an Uber or call a Lyft. They want you to spend money. Same car, same person driving, same gas, same mileage, but now they don't get a cut. They don't get no money. And companies also hate when you let a friend crash at your place instead of just getting a hotel. It's more money that they're losing out on. As a company, your favorite type of person in a capitalistic environment is probably a hyper-individualistic person. This is a person that will pay any price for convenience, but they don't really understand that it comes at the cost of community and togetherness. Humans are a social animal. We survive in tribes, we survive in packs, and we take care of each other. But if I share what I have with you, and if you share what you have with me, then that means we need to buy less stuff. Normally that's a good thing. That means we consume less, and it's probably better for the environment. But that also means we buy less, so we spend less money. Companies get less money. If you and I share, only one of us has to buy it. But if we don't share and we like to convenience ourselves, then we're both going to buy it. We're going to spend twice the money. And that's what they want, because at the end of the day, it's all about profits. A lot of people these days feel lonely and disconnected from their community. It's probably because we choose convenience over it.
Yeah, what he said. I mean, why knock on your neighbor's door for a sewing favor or to borrow something when you can just order an overnight solution on Amazon? We're told to buy candles and buy face masks and superficial crap that will never actually fill our voids. I think the commodification of self-care on the part of the consumer is a direct response to living in a world where no one will care for you. A world where you're too busy taking care of yourself to take care of someone else. As cultural critic Mark Fisher noted, late capitalist society produces what he calls, quote, depressive hedonia, a condition characterized, quote, not by an inability to get pleasure, but by an inability to do anything else except pursue pleasure. And this late capitalist culture provides countless commodities to desire, yet something is missing, a fulfillment that endless consumption can't grant. Shopping has very much become the default filler of emotional gaps. There was a time where shopping for new clothes wasn't the hobby. The real hobby was sewing the clothes that you already had. Mending, darning, hemming, altering. These were everyday skills that were passed down through families, and they were taught in schools and practiced at home. Clothes weren't cheap and disposable, and so people actually invested time and energy into learning skills to make their clothes last. Repairing your wardrobe was an act of resourcefulness. It required patience and skill, real hobbies that make you smarter and less dependent on the market. And today, that culture has pretty much all but vanished. A 2014 study from the University of Missouri's College of Human Environmental Sciences found that boomers are far more likely to have basic clothing repair skills than Americans aged 18 to 33. Unsurprisingly, that same study reported that over 14.3 million tons of textile waste were generated in 2012, largely because young consumers often lack the skills or the mindset to repair clothes and instead throw them out. I want to emphasize that it's not necessarily millennials or Gen Z's fault that they don't have these skills. They're not teaching it in schools, at least not at the rate that they used to. And a lot of boomer parents were far too bogged down with their 9-to-5 jobs to pass these skills on to their children. And fast fashion has made repairing your clothes feel obsolete. People don't want to hold on to clothes anymore. They don't want to repeat outfits. That's terrible. That's sacrilegious. Fast fashion has replaced those practical hobbies with a hollow one, shopping. We no longer mend or replace. We just buy. We don't learn a skill, we just buy more. And it's no coincidence that the more soul-sucking and soul-draining our jobs become, the more we rely on consumption to make us feel alive again, to make us feel something in our precious moments of leisure. Capitalism shapes how we rest, relax, and reward ourselves. The 9-to-5 structure, which is often much longer than 9 to 5 if you factor in commutes and the time you spend being mentally burnt out, it dominates 5 out of the 7 days in our weeks. I talked about this a month or 2 ago in my video on our Amazon addiction. We literally have 2 days to recover and to decompress, and then the cycle just repeats itself. What can you do in 2 days when your body is exhausted and your mind is basically numb? For many people, the answer is shopping. It's a low effort, high dopamine activity that doesn't require emotional labor or physical labor if you're shopping at home. It doesn't require deeper engagement. It makes a lot of sense that people would cave to shopping as a hobby because nothing about corporate America incentivizes or allows ample time for people to develop real hobbies, substantive hobbies. You're too tired to build a garden. You're too tired to read a book. You're too fried to make art. But it is so easy to grab your phone and click add to cart. The weekend is really your only window to feel alive. We talk about a work-life balance as though it exists, but our lives are really more work adjacent. I've said this before, the quality of your work life determines the quality of your personal life. They're not two separate things. If you're being chewed out by your boss, if you're drowning in deadlines, if you have very little pay, yeah, you're going to have some problems in your personal life. You can't just file away your emotions and the mental burnout, the stress, the anxiety that your 9-to-5 job causes you once the clock hits 5. There's no folder for that. And so even your weekends are structured around your work week. Had a hard time at work this week? You can just go on Amazon and buy a haul of items. What does capitalism have to offer as weekend fun? Shopping malls, nightclubs with overpriced drinks, brunches that cost 1/3 of your electric bill. I mean, you will order one mimosa and one caprese salad, and you've already spent 1/3 of your electric bill. What else does it have to offer? Scrolling through the TikTok shop? Consumer culture teaches us that if we suffer through the grind, then we deserve to treat ourselves. And of course, you deserve to get yourself things that you don't need, okay? Let's make that clear. I've made it clear quite a few times, but this might be your first time watching me. Everyone can buy things that they don't need. But when it becomes a pattern that you're always searching for that treat, that you're never satiated, that your weekends revolve around scrolling through the TikTok shop or Amazon or going to Target, yeah, that's when we're having some problems. That's when I want you to look deeper in yourself and develop more of a personality. It's like if you hate your job, well, at least you can afford nice things. If you hate your life, well, at least you can dress it up in pretty colors. That's no way to live. Instead of spending your weekends organizing mutual aid, for example, or learning something new, you're sitting in bed and you're scrolling through products and searching for something to make you feel whole again. But they never do, and that's the point. The products never make you feel whole again. The oppressive systems that we live under do not want you to feel whole. Whole people do not need expensive skincare routines. They don't need algorithm-driven micro trends to tell them who to be. Whole people are members of communities that care for each other. They create safety nets. They reduce your dependency on products and increase your reliance on people. Also, if we were cared for on the most basic of levels, we wouldn't need to use shopping as a hobby. Which is why I believe that if people had things like affordable housing, universal health care, ample vacation days, shorter work weeks, the appeal of compulsory shopping would diminish. Not because people wouldn't enjoy having nice things, but because they wouldn't need them to feel alive. Because someone that you knew and loved already had one that you could borrow. If your basic needs are met, shopping becomes an actual choice, not a compulsion. People might be able to discover real hobbies that don't revolve around spending. I want you to ask yourself, what would I do with my free time if I didn't have to work my life away to survive? What hobbies would you actually pursue? What communities would you nurture? Imagine a world where you didn't have to worry about your rent for next month. A world where going to the doctor didn't make you fear going into debt. Where taking time off work didn't induce financial panic or guilt. A world where your weekdays weren't defined by exhaustion and your weekends weren't colored with you trying to buy back some sense of freedom, some sense of leisure. then what would shopping look like? Would we still be obsessed with finding our next dopamine hit, our next aesthetic, or would we just be free to live? Like if your body and mind were nourished through accessible healthcare and abundant rest, you wouldn't need the placebo of a luxury cucumber face mask to make you feel better. If your time belonged to you and not to your employer, you wouldn't feel the need to spend every weekend trying to buy back a sense of self. Shopping has become our way of coping with unmet needs. And this is why I think that it's less about just desire and more about deprivation. We're always calculating how much rent is due or how much utilities are due. How long can I keep putting off the dental appointment that I can't afford? And when we're not doing that math, we're doing another kind of math. It's the math that asks, how many more hours until I can unwind? And for many of us, that unwinding, that sense of relief comes in the form of shopping. And so wrapping things up here, show up for each other instead of showing off for strangers. Plant vegetables instead of buying wellness powders. Write poetry or essays or journal entries instead of merely just buying clothes. Repair things instead of replacing them. The next time an influencer tries to sell you shopping as a hobby, remember that you deserve a life that is more than chasing aesthetics. You should be pursuing a life of self-discovery, not of letting someone else dictate what you like and what's in and what isn't in. You deserve community. You deserve hobbies that grow you, challenge you, and connect you to something greater than yourself. And this isn't to say that you can't shop or buy clothes that you like or buy things that you like. I believe in investing in something deeper, something introspective. And if you're going to spend your money on something that will make you grow, that will make you learn, that will not keep you shallow and superficial. There is so much more to life than shopping your life away. And so I leave you with that. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on people who use shopping as their number one hobby? Has that been you? Have you been able to turn your life around and rediscover hobbies that are actually substantive, that actually nurtured your mind? I would love to know. And if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you really liked it and you want more content like this, you can hit that subscribe button because we have plenty more like this. And besides all that, you can follow me on my social media profiles down here, as well as my Patreon, where you can support me and support my work for as little as $1.50 a month or $5 a month if you're feeling generous. Thank you again for watching, and I will talk to you all next time.